there, Sandra here from Creative in Spain, and unusually for me I'm actually going to be showing you my Juliet cutter. I've used it for over 2 years, very happy with it, it cuts really well. I use it with shortcuts a lot, number 6, version 6, because I'm used to the software and I like it, and I don't like the software that comes with the machine particularly. Whether you use one or the other is entirely personal choice. It has on the back, I put it up this way, I need to clean that off a bit, the back rail. You have a power cord, you have another port so you can connect it to your laptop or computer if you need to, and then you have a USB. I don't use those two, never have, not likely to. This is the control that controls your roller levers. So oddly enough, if you put it down, that raises. Completely contrary to what you think, but it raises them. If you want to put them down, you do that. You cannot individually control them, apart from the fact on this particular one here, I've got a plastic gizmo which stops that spring from being used, and it keeps my roller off of my paper or card or whatever it is that I'm using. Now, at some point, possibly, I might even, because it's well out of warranty, I may well even get my husband to remove this roller for me completely, because I don't want it there. I don't need a third roller. But that's just me. I would sooner it wasn't there. If you open it up, there we go, you can see. Now I've got my left roller as far over as it will go, and I have my right roller as far as it will go. Almost, not quite, but almost. This one is pushed over to the side. Like I said, I really don't want it there at all, but it's still there. You must put your rollers over the grit shafts, which are the rough black areas. Okay, you have to put it over there because that's how it grips. It doesn't grip if you put it on the bar, only over the grit shaft. Now, here we have the blade holder. When it comes to the blade, let me zoom in a bit. There we go, hopefully that's in focus. When it comes to the blade holder, it goes in the grip, so the top of the grip goes over this ridge. Okay, you don't sit it in there with the ridge on top, it goes over the top of the ridge, and then you screw it up tight. To loosen your blade and to move it, you use the gold ring, and then you can wind it in or wind it out. Now this blade was used yesterday, and hopefully you can see the point, to cut 300 GSM card. Can you see the blade? Barely, okay? This is not like a Cricut. The only reason you would want a lot of blade stuck out is if you were cutting craft foam or something like that, which, because it is like 2mm thick, which is the thickest you can do, you will need a fair amount of blade out because obviously, yeah, it's thicker material. But this, as I said, was cutting a 300 GSM card yesterday, which is a pretty good weight card. This happens to be at 8.5 by 11 because that's, yeah, for whatever reason, it's an American size. I have no idea why. But it's the thickest card that I am likely to use. You really don't get anything over that, unless you're talking about corrugated, which is a different matter altogether. But for a solid card, this is probably about the thickest you're going to go. And I used a force of, I'm trying to think what it was now, I think it was 50, with that very, very small amount of blade out. Now, if you're used to a Cricut or whatever, you would probably be thinking, ooh, that's not much blade. It is. It's way, 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 way too much. So you want to wind it right the way in, until you can barely feel it. If you're cutting vinyl, you really have so little blade out because vinyl is so thin and H2V is so thin. You have hardly any blade showing at all. And you never want to put more blade out than the depth of your card. That's as much as you would want it out. And in fact, I didn't even have that much blade sticking out. I just put a reasonable pressure on it. Admittedly, this happens to be a fairly new blade, but very, very little blade. So it is a very bad idea to think, oh, I will use less pressure, I will just stick more blade out. No, what you will end up doing is moving your card around on the mat because the blade will lodge into it and it'll just be trying to move the card. You want very, very little blade, more pressure. It then puts the pressure on the card and the mat underneath, and it cuts it a lot better, a lot cleaner. You put a lot of blade out and you will end up looking like you've hacked at it with a hacksaw. So yeah, you don't want to do that. So if you're new to cutting machines altogether, just take my word for it, hardly any blade. I mean, I could literally put my finger over that and it's not going to hurt me. I'd have to put a lot of pressure on that for it to actually cut me because there is so little blade stuck out. So it then goes into the holder, you loosen it off, and then you tighten it up. Make sure it's nice and tight. Make sure that gold ring is nice and tight as well. And as you can see, the clamp is over the ring around the blade holder. When it comes to vinyl, you might be thinking, oh, I need something to hold my vinyl. Now, I don't use vinyls that often on a roll, but when I do, I have this, my homemade version of a roll keeper. And it is, in fact, a baguette pan. This one happens to be a double baguette pan. I've got them in triples as well. But if you put that behind your machine, you might possibly want to put a sticky pad or a foam pad underneath it to stop it from moving. But if you put that behind your machine and you've got a roll of vinyl in there, it holds it, it does the job, and it's pretty cheap to get. When it comes to blades, I don't buy recognised brands. I prefer to use fresher blades on a regular basis than use one blade and be thinking, oh, I don't want to change it out because it's going to cost me 10 euros or whatever to change my blade. So I buy a lot of them in one go quite cheaply, and then if it's not sharp enough, I change it. I don't even think about it. You switch your machine on and you will see it come to life. I'll open it up so you can see if I'm moving the carriage. There we go. This little button here sends your carriage back home. It's home already. I would move it via the arrows like so. And then it's gone back to the home position. One of the most important things on here is the test cut. I will take a photograph of this and show it to you so you get something a bit closer. But the test cut is the shape of a t-shirt with a circle in the middle. When you're doing a test cut, you want to make sure that the t-shirt cuts out and the circle in the middle cuts out. And that would generally mean if you get a clean cut, then your blade setting is pretty much set. That is assuming that you've got your blade in there and it's nice and tight, that you've got a flat mat, that your material itself isn't warped and that it's stuck well to a mat. With all those things in place and you get a good test cut, you should be fine. The cut settings, if you press this, you get a range of different Siser materials and you can save your own cut settings in there if you wish. Not something I generally do. I always use settings from my software, because if I go from the software one time to using it on the machine another time, the chances are I'm going to forget to alter a setting and I'm going to be using the wrong one. So I always do it on the software, that's it. But that's just me. Now, if I go back to the home screen, you can see we have settings in here. So you've got general settings, click on that. So you've got LED, ringtones if you want it, sleep mode, units, language, pretty self-explanatory. The LED you can have on high power or you can have it on lower. I always keep mine on the maximum and have done with it. Now if I go back to the home screen and go back to settings, one of the settings on here is camera. The Wi-Fi setting, I'm not going to go into that. It's pretty easy to set up your Wi-Fi. Now the camera has its own light. So if I click on that, hang on, let's just move my, let's go back here, just move my carriage over so hopefully you can see it. Go into the settings, go to the camera, and it has its own light under here for picking up your registration marks. And it has different settings. So that's one setting, that's two settings, that's three settings. So if you're finding your machine is having difficulty picking up your registration marks, make sure you've got this set to the correct setting. It can get confused if you've got strong light coming in on the machine from a window or a lamp facing into it, you can confuse it. But if you are using the lamp here to do your print and cut, make sure that you haven't got it switched off or that you've got it switched on to the correct setting that you find works for you. So there's two lights, there's the general one in the machine and then there's the one under there. And a lot of people don't even think about that. Go back to settings, you've got USB. I don't ever use it, and you've got system info which gives you all the machine details, and again I'm not going to go into that, but all your controls are on here. Now what I would say is once you've finished a cut, if it hasn't cut all the way through but you've let it get back to its starting space, if you press that little arrow in the center there, it'll cut it again. If you go partway through a cut and you abandon it, there is a cancellation button in red that comes up at the bottom there. Make sure to cancel your cut, or else when it starts up again it's going to think, oh yeah, I need to continue that one, and you don't want that to happen. So make sure you cancel it out if you've decided, no, this isn't working, taking this out, I'm moving it, whatever. Make sure to cancel it out. So that's just a brief review of the machine. I said I probably did a review of it a couple of years ago or so when I got it. It still works great, I still love it. It does the job and it allows me to design whatever I want to design and to cut it from either its own software or from Shortcut Slot directly via Wi-Fi. So that's great for me. Okay, so next we go on to mats. Now, some people have found, because of the way the machines are packaged, the mats arrive kind of curved. Now, if that is the case, then what I suggest is that you warm the mat up slightly with a hairdryer and you put it under something heavy to try and flatten it out. So if your mat is curving up this way, put it down that way with something on the top. Now you notice this is not an original mat. I haven't had one of those for some considerable time. So if you need to buy more mats for your machine, you can buy whatever brand mats you like. Whatever ones fit your particular machine. Okay, we are talking approximately, well, to say 35, yeah, you could get 35 centimeters across there. When it comes to mats, once you've actually completely destroyed your mat, hopefully you won't do that for some considerable time, or it's so warped that you really can't use it anymore, you either buy a new one or you do what I do and I make my own. I have a mat here which is made from a for sale sign. Now in this particular case, what I chose to do, I had some flexible chopping boards from Aldi or something, which I bought when I saw them. I thought, aha, those are coming handy. And I cut strips and I put them there, and I put one across here as well. Now the reason for doing that is because, yes, it's thin, it will warp. It's fine for cutting on, don't have a problem cutting on it, but it is going to warp, they all do. Because the grips on those rollers are so strong, they will warp. But if you've got something that stops it from going from left to right, as I have here, this bit in the middle can't warp in the same way. The edges can warp, but that's fine, I can still use that, that's not a problem. But it can't warp that way. And the rollers don't make it warp that way, they make it warp from side to side. So I've been using this mat for probably about a year, and it is still flat, so not a problem. I have another mat here, which as you can see I use for vinyl only, and this one is warped on the sides. This is an IKEA dinner mat. It's a placemat, table placemat. It works brilliantly, it's really nice and tough. It's thicker than this, nice and tough, does the job properly. So the next thing you're going to say, how do you make it sticky? Well, I use Aleene's Tack It over and over. In general, I do dilute it a little bit because it is extremely sticky, and I put it into a jar, dilute it with probably about 20% water, mix it all up, and then I either sponge it on or I use a roller or whatever. I mask off the edges. So what you need to bear in mind is where your rollers are going to be, and mark where your rollers are, because you do not want to put glue on those areas. You don't want to get your rollers all sticky. It stops travel of the mat properly, it gives you problems. You want to keep it off the glue. So mark out where your rollers are going to go, and then put the glue in the middle of it, not to either side. That's another advantage of doing this, because I can actually glue over the entire mat, doesn't make any difference. But then I use double-sided tape to put this on, and it stayed there, it's fine. It works really, really well. So you can use this for sale signs, plastic for sale signs. I can buy a really big one of these and get 2 mats out of it for about €2.50. I think that's quite acceptable, so I'm quite happy. It's very difficult for me to get actual mats unless I order them on Amazon, and to be honest, because I can make those, I tend not to bother. I don't really need to have the grid marks on it, so it isn't an issue. But if you do want grid marks on it, mark out your grid with a proper CD marker or something that requires alcohol to get it off, and then put your glue on top, because the glue is water-based. It'll be fine once your marker is dried, but you don't want to put it on top of the glue because that's going to get on the back of your card, and you really don't want that aggravation. So it is pretty easy to make these sticky. Now today I actually cleaned both of these off because I hadn't cleaned them for absolutely ages. What do I use to clean it? If I just want to refresh it and I don't want to re-glue it, I use hot water and washing up liquid, or dish soap if you're in the US. It's called dish soap, isn't it? But the other thing that I use is this, which is actually a silicone pan cleaner. But it is really good, I found, because it is gentle enough that it doesn't damage the glue, but it gets the paper remnants off. And I just scrubbed it with this, and it was really, really good. I was impressed. This was very fast, and it's done a good job. It's nice and clean now. They are tacky, they haven't quite dried up fully yet. So I did them about 10 minutes ago. You can dry them off with a hairdryer to speed up the process, which is what I did, but they're still not fully dry. It's slightly tacky. I may end up having to put another layer of glue on this one because it was done with dilute glue. But if I did it with undiluted, tack it over and over, yeah, it would be extremely, extremely sticky. which is fine in some cases, but if you're cutting copy paper, for example, or onion paper, something like that, you don't want it that sticky. It's good for card and heavier items, and plastics if you're cutting acetates and various other plastics. But if you're using it for card and paper, lighter weight stuff, then you probably don't want to go full strength. It'll just grip it and you won't get it off your mat very easily. So yeah, I would suggest trying it to start off with at full strength and then thinking, okay, maybe I need to dilute this a bit. You know, maybe just add a little drop of water to it, but that's up to you. If you like a really sticky mat, then don't bother. So basically that means that I can use my Siser cutter. I don't have to buy any other accessories. I 3D printed, or got my husband to 3D print after I designed them, some pen adapters, and I have published the file on Thingiverse. I've also done a version where I've smoothed it a bit, because this was done not for looks, this was just done for pure functionality, and I have adjusted the file, or I've redone the file I should say, and smoothed the edges out. So I will provide a link to that under this video, a Dropbox link, and you can grab the STL for these if you so wish. You can buy a metal pen adapter. Because these have got a gap in them, they will close up a little bit if it's too big for whatever you're doing. It'll close up a bit in the clamp. Or conversely, if your pen is ever so slightly bigger, but it's not big enough for the next size up, it'll stretch slightly to fit the pen. But yes, these are very good, and I've got a whole load of pens that I use within these different sizes. I think if I remember correctly, they go from 8 to 10 millimeters, and I also included just a little wrap for a thicker pen as well. So yeah, you'll be able to use whatever pens you like pretty much in the Juliet. One thing I would say is, unless you're very careful, don't use felt tip type pens, because you'll possibly damage the nib. Depends how careful you are. If you use a very low force and you put the pen in carefully, then you might be okay. But it's much better to use normal ballpoint or gel pens, that type of thing. Okay, that's it for the time being. I will see you again soon. Take care now. Bye.